Imagine this, a mother living what looks like a normal life in a quiet part of Bradford, holding the respect of her neighbors and the trust of her children. She's seen walking to the shops, chatting politely, presenting herself as a caring, loving parent. Nothing about her stands out as unusual, but behind closed doors, she is running a major international drug operation worth millions. And not just running it, she's using her own children as pawns in the game. This is the story of Farzana Kauser, a 54-year-old woman from Waterlily Road in Bradford, who went from being seen as an ordinary mum to being exposed as the leader of a sophisticated crime group. She orchestrated the smuggling of hundreds of kilograms of cocaine into the UK, built links with overseas cartels, and turned her household into a crime unit. It's a story that shocked even hardened investigators, not only because of the scale of the drugs involved, but because of the way she dragged her children into it, risking their futures and safety. Kauser wasn't an outsider in her community. Born and raised in Bradford, she came from Manningham, an area with a tight-knit South Asian population. To her friends, she was polite, religious, and always ready to say hello. To her neighbors, she appeared to be a normal mum. People who later spoke about her to reporters described her as very normal, someone you would never suspect of being involved in crime, let alone international drug trafficking. But appearances, as we now know, can be deceiving. Behind her respectable facade, Farzana was running a hidden life. She wasn't just dabbling in drugs, she was operating at the level of international cartels, liaising with contacts abroad, organizing flights, and pulling her children into an operation worth millions. So, what would lead a woman like her to go down such a path? Money, of course, played a massive role. Cocaine trafficking is one of the most lucrative criminal businesses on the planet. The profit margins are huge, and for someone like Farzana, who might have been frustrated with the limits of a modest life, the lure of quick wealth was irresistible. But there's another layer too. Power. She wasn't just involved, she was in charge. A decision maker, a planner. She took the role of leader in what police later called a sophisticated and well-planned operation. She balanced this double life well. In public, she kept her head down, made sure her image as a loving mum remained intact. In private, she turned her family home into the headquarters of a smuggling ring. And central to her plan were the very people she was supposed to protect, her children. This was not a case of a single rogue parent. Farzana built a family-based network. Her 4 eldest children were directly involved. Her youngest son, only 17 at the time, was dragged in too. Even her daughter-in-law became part of the conspiracy. The scale of this family involvement shocked many. It wasn't just about 1 or 2 kids helping mum with dodgy errands. This was systematic. Each child had a role to play in the smuggling runs. They boarded flights, carried bags, and went through airport checks. They became the runners, the visible faces of the plan, while Farzana stayed in the background as the mastermind. But the network didn't stop at her household. Farzana had international contacts. In Pakistan, there was a figure known only as Uncle, who was tied into the operation. In Mexico, corrupt insiders helped get cocaine-filled suitcases onto flights bound for the UK. This wasn't a small-time hustle. It was an organized criminal pipeline stretching across continents. Let's talk about how it worked, because the method itself was clever in its design. The cocaine came from Mexico, specifically Cancun. Now, instead of sending someone to physically carry the drugs, which would raise suspicion at customs, the group used a different trick. Suitcases filled with cocaine were checked in on flights from Cancun to Birmingham Airport, but these suitcases had no passenger traveling with them. They were ghost bags loaded onto the plane by insiders. Here's where Farzana's children came in. They would take short trips to places like Amsterdam or Dublin, sometimes for just a day or two. They would travel with little or no luggage, making it look like a quick getaway. But their real mission was the return flight. They booked flights back to Birmingham Airport, timed carefully so they would land at the same time as the Cancun flights carrying the cocaine-filled suitcases. To put that into perspective, 180 kilograms is enormous. On the street, that amount of cocaine was worth around 14.4 million pounds. Some of it was destined for other organized crime groups, and some was meant to go back to Farzana's base in Bradford, where it would be cut down and distributed. This wasn't pocket money, this was serious cartel-level business. And for a family in Bradford to be part of that chain was staggering. For a while, the operation seemed to work smoothly, but law enforcement agencies had their eyes open. The National Crime Agency, NCA, and UK Border Force were watching the baggage systems closely. They noticed the pattern of suitcases arriving without linked passengers. They also spotted the timing of Farzana's children showing up to claim them. The final straw came on the 11th of November, 2024. On that day, Farzana herself went to Birmingham Airport. She claimed she was only there to pick up her children who were flying in from Cancun, but the children weren't empty-handed. They were carrying cocaine. Border Force officers intervened and the game was up. Farzana was arrested on the spot. At first, she tried to maintain her story, that she was just a mother collecting her kids from the airport. But investigators had already pieced together the broader conspiracy. They had surveillance, flight records, and the evidence of the drugs themselves. The case moved quickly through the courts because the evidence was overwhelming. Prosecutors described the operation as sophisticated and well-planned. They laid out how Farzana was the leader, how her children were her recruits, and how the operation relied on international contacts. The children and daughter-in-law all pleaded guilty to their roles. The youngest son, who was only 17, became a focus of outrage because it showed just how far Farzana was willing to go, risking not just prison for her kids, but their safety in the dangerous world of cartels. When it came to sentencing, the court didn't hold back. So what can we take from this story? First, it shows how dangerous the drug trade is, not just in terms of addiction on the streets, but the human cost within families. Farzana didn't just break the law, she broke the trust of her children, using them as tools for her greed. Second, it highlights how sophisticated smuggling methods have become. This wasn't about stuffing drugs in socks or hiding them in car panels. This was about exploiting loopholes in international baggage systems and coordinating flights across continents. Third, it reminds us of the resilience of law enforcement. The National Crime Agency and Crown Prosecution Service were able to track patterns, build a case, and shut down an operation worth millions. Without their work, hundreds of thousands of cocaine deals could have hit the streets, fueling crime and addiction. But perhaps the biggest lesson is a personal one. The choices of parents can shape or destroy the futures of their children. Instead of guiding her kids toward education or careers, Farzana led them into crime. The NCA said it best: she pushed her children into huge danger and effectively destroyed their futures. The story of Farzana Kauser is not just about drugs. It's about betrayal, family, greed, and the devastating consequences of crime. From a distance, she looked like any other mother. Up close, she was a crime boss, connected to international networks and willing to gamble her children's lives for money. Now she sits in prison with more than 13 years to serve, and her children too are behind bars. The empire she built has collapsed, and the price she and her family have paid is immense. Thank you for following this story. Cases like this raise tough questions. How does someone go from being seen as a loving parent to becoming the mastermind of a smuggling ring? Was it purely greed? Was it desperation? Or was it a lust for power? I'd love to hear what you think. What's your take on this case? Do you think Farzana's children were victims, or were they willing accomplices? Could anything have stopped this family from going down this path? Drop your thoughts in the comments, keep the conversation going, and let's talk about what lessons we can take from one of the most shocking drug cases to come out of Bradford in recent years. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell.